next keynote, I'm super excited for this as well. Mr. Kenny Kesar, he's the global CIO at Wipro. We've had a very long relationship with Wipro in the sense that they consume WS2 on their internal developer side, internal developer platform side. Just to give you a sense, WS2, given the size that we are today, in order for us to run the company on a day-to-day basis, we sign up for about 200 SaaS providers, and we probably have about 100 plus internal applications. This is all the way from supporting our product engineers to build the product, to hosting our services, to all the administrative things as well, from payroll to everything else. So that's us, given the size that we are. Imagine a company the size of Wipro. Wipro has about, 250,000 employees across 4 business units, spread across all over the world, and doing high volume projects with customers. So you can only imagine what kind of internal platforms they have in order to operate efficiently. So we are very excited to have him here with us, and really looking forward to hear what he has to say about how they leverage WS2 internally. With that, I'll introduce Kenny.
Good afternoon, folks, and thank you WSO2 for giving us the opportunity to showcase Wipro. I was going to talk about what we do in terms of how we've our systems, how we've modernized, and how we've taken an API-first architecture. But before that, I was really inspired and taken aback by a lot of discussions that happened around longevity, culture, and congratulating WSO2 for 20 years. Coincidentally, this month, Wipro is celebrating its 80th year in business. So talk about longevity. It's a brand that has really transformed itself over the ages. I'm going to talk a little bit about Wipro before I get into my presentation, because I'm really proud to be part of a company that has so much culture, so much longevity, and what we're doing for philanthropy and in terms of our commitment to philanthropy. Our founder, Mr. Premji, has irrevocably committed 66% of Wipro economically to a charity. So that means every dollar that we earn, 66% of it goes to charity. I think what a cause. We started off, thank you. So for every time we earn a dollar, we're proud as a company that 66 cents of that dollar is really going back to charity. Our founder, Mr. Premji, is is among the top 5 donors worldwide to philanthropic causes. So being a part of that company, I want to emphasize on how a brand has maintained longevity and how it has really. I don't know how many people here know, we at Wipro started off as a vegetable oil company. This was 80 years ago, it started off as a vegetable oil company. It's gone through multiple transformations. It's gone into consumer electronics, it went into hardwares, doing PCs, to the top 4 GSIs in India. We are at about $10.5 billion in revenue. We are among the top 4 GSIs in the world, in India. And also, we have 200 as a CIO, I want to take you into a journey as a CIO before I really get into my presentation. CIO of a GSI, what does it mean? You have a company of 240,000 engineers. Everybody's a developer, everybody's an engineer, everybody has 2 cents to offer in terms of how technology should be implemented. It's really, it's a good thing, but it's also a challenge. Everybody has an opinion. Now, especially if you have 240,000 opinions in terms of how we should be running our company, it's not going to be something which is sustainable. But on the other hand, as a CIO, I'm also forced into, in times, expected to run every leading edge, bleeding edge technology internally so that we can be a reference to our customers that we serve. So, as a part of modernization, sometimes it's a business need. Sometimes it's a business need because the business needs it. So today, I'm going to really talk about our journey of how, and this is, again, a very common thing. It's a cliche where integration spaghetti to strategic, really something which has been going on for years now. And yesterday I saw the 20-year journey of WSO2, where we've gone through message buses, we've gone through different components of the architecture. Similarly, we've been there too. So, but over the last 6 years, I think we took an approach to be an API-first architecture. And with that said, I'll go into my first slide. So the challenge, and this is not an uncommon challenge. Everybody in the room, and that's been the crux of what WSO2 has been done, is to fix the challenge of point-to-point kiosks. Now, why do I say point-to-point kiosks? We at Wipro, over time, we are a legacy. We've been in business for 80 years, and we've seen various aspects of technology and systems. Some of our systems are more than 30 years old. So as of today, internally, to service Wipro as a company that represents IT services, that represents infrastructure services, consumer electronics, we have about 300 odd applications. 300 odd applications connected to a common source of P, success factors, a number of, Microsoft from a data lake perspective. So imagine if we had to do, and which we had to do, was to really look at point-to-point. So at that point, 6 years ago, we said enough is enough, and we said we are going to look at an API-first architecture. Our WSO journey started about 6 years ago, and I think we've come a long way. I'll talk about in terms of how we are scaling. Just to give you a perspective from what we were 6 years ago to what we are today, at peak loads, we run 17,000 transactions a second through the platform. So now scaling became a nightmare. Every app meant 5 or 4 more brittle connections. And this was where things started. So every time we wanted to onboard a new application, a new solution, we had to look at identification again, we had to look at communication protocols again. Somebody's talking OData, somebody's talking JSON, somebody's talking, proprietary formats. So we decided we are going to have one API gateway at the back end of which we will take the complexities out. Especially when you're going from to an API-based architecture, you're really looking at a bunch of microservices. Microservices, design principle-wise, was considered to be the nirvana of IT design. But really looking at how we started consuming microservices, and when we had to refresh a page with 100 microservices, we said, oh, is this the real good architecture, or we really have to look at coarse graining it? So as a part of coarse graining, I think a lot of this happened as a part of evolution, and I'll talk about in terms of our learnings, especially around what coarse graining meant, as cybersecurity changes, the need to encrypt messages during communication for different use cases comes into being. So we use also as a part of our WSO solution. So the turning point for us was, like I said, an API-first mindset. At Wipro, 6 years ago, we took a decision, an architectural principle that said all systems will be classified, or all solutions will be classified under 3 categories. System of engagement, which is the UI that we deal with. System of services, which we call SOS, is where the API gateway and all the integration will sit. And system of record, which is the SAPs of the world, or the Oracles of the world, or the success factors of the world. So taking those core principles in mind, we said the only way we could really have an effective SOE that can scale was to really have an API-first mindset. So as a part of our solution evolution, we adopted a full lifecycle API management solution. We published APIs. We did the full lifecycle discovery across our API management system. We enabled faster onboarding of apps and teams, and I want to actually take you through the evolution of the journey that we had today is from moving from a system of engagement, which is, in our case, most of our applications was done on Angular-based solutions, moving to a UI for AI as a single gateway to all the 300 apps that we do, that we have in Wipro. Now, the way we did this was, about 4 years ago, we said, we are going to give a single user interface through a chatbot, at that time NLP, NLS-based solutions. Here is where we transformed, and this is where our API-first approach really bore fruit. We had done our system of engagement, which is basically consuming APIs as we enable solutions. This seamlessly translated into when we went into a chatbot solution. So as of today, we enable 70 transactions across 300-odd applications through one user interface, like time management, leave management, booking transportation, and the list goes on through one single interface. And at the back end of it, it is the reusable APIs or API solution that we had developed. So as we lend ourselves into more AI-based solutions, I'll talk to you about in the subsequent slides how our architectural principles lent itself very well into making AI-enabled solutions available to our broader user base. So building the core: governance, security, and scale. So from APIs to enterprise-grade ecosystem. We decided as a part of architectural principles that we are going to have a system of record, an identity management system, an API gateway, an integration layer, and identity management or token exchange layer that we orchestrated through the WSO2 framework. So as of today, any new onboarding comes through SailPoint, which is our identity management layer of giving access. It seamlessly talks into SAP for all role-based accesses. All those role-based accesses are linked to a SAML token-based authentication, which are enabled as connectivity across the ecosystem. So one source, one set of governance, and it scales. Like I said, we do at peak loads about 17,000 transactions a second on this particular platform. So now, what did this do? This really helped us reduce the onboarding time of applications from months to days, actually. And in some cases, we were agnostic of even the payloads of those particular platforms. So today, we standardized on JSON as a payload, as a consuming payload across all our applications. SAP talks to WSO2 in OData. Somebody talks to WSO2 in JSON. But everything in our API gateway is exposed as JSON payloads. So considering that as a standard, our consuming systems could easily consume the APIs in record time. So now, any presentation without AI in this era would not be complete. So, I'm really going to talk about how how the architectural decisions that we took 6 years ago lend itself in really enabling our API-based solutions. I talked about our virtual assistant that we did 4 years ago, which was based on NLP NLS. We've just changed the technology behind it for our virtual assistant to be AI-enabled. And AI-enabled on context. It knows, when I say I, it knows me. It knows me as Kenny, as the CIO of Wipro. It knows which location I am at. So any query that I do for a policy or a claim or any of the operational work I do, it knows who I am. Now, as far as policies are concerned, today we offer all companies, every size offers benefits which are localized by geography. So our solution, because of the API integration and the way we consume APIs, and we qualify it, knows who they. Let's say I'm talking about benefits for my parents, in terms of what are the benefits that the company offers for my parents. I'm talking about my mother. Every question that's going to be answered is in the context of my mother if I've started answering that. Now, that's how we've evolved, and it's using the same APIs that were used in the old chatbot. The other thing that this is doing is also, I'm looking at what is the leave policy. I want to go on a sabbatical, or I want to go on vacation, or I want to go on a special purpose project leave, and I'm talking about figuring out which leave to apply. The assistant, the virtual assistant, knows the context. So while you're talking about it, it'll say, do you want to apply leave? It will determine the context, call the API at the back end, create the payload based on the context that I've been discussing with my virtual assistant, and send the payload across the same API. So talk about scalability, talk about resilience. Some things that the investments that we made in an API-first architecture are really paying us as we seamlessly transform from multiple UIs to one single UI for AI. So our aim at Wipro is to really look at one single UI for AI, where all the systems at the back end, we want it to be completely transparent to the user. And over time, I should be talking to my systems rather than communicating through a chatbot. So as we enable that, we're making a lot of plumbing changes. We're exposing a lot more number of APIs so that each context has an API at the end of it with a deterministic payload that we determine from our AI chatbot. So now, within API-first architecture, integration with the LLMs to support RAG or autonomous workflows is also exposed through the same platform. So to sum it up, and I call it SOS, and SOS is system of services, but SOS, WSO2 is really our SOS, because if WSO2 is down, we are blind across the organization. So we at Wipro run our entire API payloads and integration through the WSO platform. This is something that we standardized about 4 years ago when we went live with our biggest transformation till date. So as an architecture principle, everything runs through our WSO orchestration. So SOS didn't just connect our systems, it connected to the future, and we really believe it. We really practice it on a daily basis, and it really helps us to drive our vision of one single UI for AI, which is one interface for us to do. As far as business benefits, we've talked about it, 60 to 70% faster time to market, a standardized platform. We've got enabled agents that architecturally are enabled, and it is a gateway to multiple LLMs and multiple RAG solutions that are exposed. So on that note, I'd like to leave two things from my experience as we drove towards systems. We've talked about technology, we've talked about API first mindset, we've talked about different aspects of modernization, but the thought that I want to leave everybody in this room is without the right process orchestration, systems don't work. So, I have this quote of saying, AI without the right process orchestration is a very expensive experiment. So we can think of all different aspects of solution design, but if we do not design the process that we are enabling, technology becomes an overhead. So the one thought I want to leave you is, do not just focus on technology. Before we decide on technology, make sure that the process is orchestrated in a manner that it can consume technology the best. I'll give one example, not in the context of the API gateway, but considering that everybody will interact with AI in some form or the other. As a CIO, my objective is to deliver efficiency, productivity, and innovation to the organization. The convergence of POC to production in the AI world is in the single digits today. Why is it in the single digits today? At least this is my perspective, and people could have a different opinion. But why the convergence from POC to production is in the single digits is because we try to solve the most complex problem with AI rather than solving it in bite sizes. I'll give you a very simple example. In the context, again, the same plumbing, the same APIs, but used differently. It's a practical example which I'd like to share with everybody. In India, we have a benefit that we give our employees, 170,000 of them, where you're allowed to submit prescriptions and pharmacy bills, which are matching for you to get the benefit, because we provide a benefit where you can do claims of your medicines as long as they're equipped with a prescription. We decided to use AI about a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, to solve that problem of matching a prescription to a pharmacy bill. Now, especially with pharmacies' prescriptions, you have generics, you have multiple options. And to top it all of you, when you have receipts, you would put it in your pocket, they'll have folds, creases in the receipts across the board. So any OCR is as good as how many creases it can really interpret. We tried to solve the most complex problem of trying to reconstruct receipts, trying to look at generics, merge everything all. We were at 30% of efficacy in terms of the solution. Now, we played around a lot. We said, let's make our algorithms better. But it only yielded little. So we decided, okay, now how do we really look at it? Let's orchestrate the process again, and let's do this in bite sizes. So the first aspect is we brought AI to the forefront. So when one of our employees started to upload a receipt, it read 80 to 90% of the receipt because others were creases. So we set a threshold saying that if it's 80 to 90% of the entire data load, that's where we used AI, let the person change the receipt, because anyway the same process happens. So bringing AI up front, we allowed people to change up to 5 to 10%, which is a configurable value of what the OCR could not recognize because of the quality of the receipt. Similarly, we did it for prescriptions, doctor's handwriting. We're, famously, notoriously famous for not being so legible. We allowed them to change based on a threshold. So at the end of it, we were solving a very, very simple problem at the back end. And our efficacy from the 30% went to more than 90% because we just used same AI, we made it simpler, we orchestrated the process differently, and we looked at consuming AI in bite sizes. So for AI especially, sigma of bite-sized AI solutions, rather than having the most complex problem to solve at the end, will really help your convergence from POC to production. And the reason why I thought it was relevant is the same APIs you're consuming, it's the same architecture you're consuming, it's only the process that you're reorchestrating. Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure talking to this audience. Thank you.